Really quickly, we're going to start out. If you don't have Unity, go ahead and go to unity3d.com, click on Get Unity Now, and you can get a personal version for free. Go ahead and go to download that, and you can download your installer and follow the steps from there on out. I already have Unity installed, and this is the main window you're going to see once you open up Unity. We're going to start a new project. We're going to do a 2D project, and let's go ahead and name that project. Our project's going to be, well, I showed you that we were making a game where there's a cat on a pogo stick, so let's go ahead and just name it Pogo Cat. And then click Create Project. And then here we have it. This is the screen that it will load into. If you go into File, Build Settings, you can see that we are building this for PC, Mac, and Linux standalone. So this is our target platform. We don't need to go ahead and change that since we're doing this for a computer, but if you wanted to do it for an iOS device, Android device, etc., you would go through and select your build setting and then run it for that. We're just going to use the default platform. And I've already made a few different sprites that will fit this game in a certain dimension. So as opposed to seeing it in free aspect, click that. We're going to go down to the plus button. And I actually did this as a 1920 by 1080. Go ahead and click OK. And that will become our new screen resolution. Let me go ahead and make the screen a little bit bigger. We're going to start by adding different folders that will store sprites in, scripts in, scenes in, text in, etc. So we're going to create a new folder. Our first folder is going to be for animations. Create another folder. So you can either right click or go to create. But be sure when you create, you're creating under the assets. You don't want to create within this folder labeled animations because that's where we're going to put our animations and our animator controllers. So go back to assets, right click, create another folder. This one is going to be for our audio. Right click again, create. We're going to do prefabs. Then we're going to have a folder labeled scenes, scripts, sprites, and lastly, we're going to have a text folder. Going from game view to scene view is where you can see the scene that you're building, and game view is how the player will view the game. Let's go ahead and create our first sprite. We're going to create the player sprite. And as opposed to going ahead and importing the Pogo Cat already as our player, we're going to just use a circle to represent that character or that player. So in the sprites folder, you can right click and hit create, or just go to create, go down until you see sprites. Now we're going to use a circle as our character. Now you can click and drag the circle up into the hierarchy and it will place the circle in the game view, or you can go to the scene and drag it into the scene. When you drag it into the hierarchy, it automatically places our circle at the position 0, 0, 0. We do not have to worry about the z coordinate because this is a two-dimensional game. So think of it as back in math, in algebra class, when you're plotting on a graph. This is our x-y coordinate system. So this point where our player rests is at 0, 0. And since the circle is our player, we'll want to rename that. So you can rename that over in the right-hand corner. Once the circle is selected, let's name this player and press enter. And you can see that it will change over in your hierarchy. Under the tag, we know that this is a player, so we're going to go down and tag this as player. Now let's go ahead and add in our platform or the ground. So we're going to create a new sprite. And this will simply be a square. Let's this time go ahead and drag it into our scene view. You can see that when I dragged the square and placed it within the scene view, it appeared where I let go of my mouse click. So let's go ahead and delete that. Right click, delete the square, and I'll show you again. I want it to be placed below, so I'm going to go ahead and drop it there. Zooming in, you can see that the circle sits above the square, but I want it to sit on the square, so I'm going to drag my square until it just touches. And you can see when you're looking at the transform position, that's at about -1. So we can go ahead and just type in -1. I also want this to set in the X at 0 so that they're perfectly aligned vertically. But we want the player to be able to move along the ground, and that's a pretty small platform. So we can go ahead and drag it, and notice as we drag, we're scaling in the X. We can also drag to the left and scale again. So let's go ahead and undo, so Control Z, Control Z. And if we just want to scale in the X, instead of moving the position because we want the center to still be at 0, let's go ahead and multiply this, or scale it by 9. Or how about 10? To give us a nice long platform. Now when we go to the game view, we can see that our player rests on the platform or the square. Let's go ahead and rename the square by clicking in the hierarchy, and let's just name it platform. Let's go ahead and save our scene before we move on anymore. Go to File, Save Scene, and let's just name this our main scene. So go ahead and click Save. Now our scene appears in our Assets folder, but we want it to be not just in the Assets folder, but in the Scenes folder within the Assets folder. So go ahead and click and drag the main scene into Scenes. So now when we go into Scenes, we can see our main scene. And we'll stop here for now. In the next video, we'll go ahead and change the color so we can differentiate even more between the player and the platform, and add rigid bodies and box colliders.